Hi everyone, and welcome to this stream. So the plan for this stream is we're going to look at economic indicators, and we're going to have a little look at Brexit also. So I should say just a little bit of housekeeping before we begin. That to begin, I'm going to go through the website with you, and I'm going to just show you what we have and how you guys as students can use the site. I'm also going to talk a little bit about our upcoming Easter revision courses that could be available to you for this week coming, or for Leaving Cert if you have brothers or sisters or cousins or friends or whatever that you might recommend us onto them for those. And once I've finished going through the site for a couple of minutes, I'm going to obviously go through a PowerPoint on economic indicators and Brexit. So if you guys want access to that PowerPoint, what I'd recommend you to do is to, in the chat of this YouTube stream, you'll see that there is a Google form. So if you just click onto that and fill it out, what we'll do is we will send you an email with all the slides that we're using today, and there's also a PDF document as well, which will be sent on to you as well. So anything that I go through with you today effectively will be sent on to you via email if you just put your details into the Google form, which is in the chat, our YouTube chat, okay? And the other thing I should say to you before we get going is if at any stage, if any of you have a question that you would like to ask me based on the content that I'm going through today, if you go on to our Instagram, so our Instagram is at ExamRevision.ie, and you'll see there that on our story we have a chat box open for you guys to ask me questions. I just realised I didn't introduce myself as well. So my name's Paddy, and I'm the uh, junior cycle business content creator with ExamRevision, and a co-owner with ExamRevision as well. So you'll see that we have there a chat box which is Ask Paddy the questions as I'm going through that today. Okay, so that's kind of all our housekeeping bits, and as I said, we'll actually begin by looking at the Easter revision courses, and you can see what we have available this week for junior cycle students. So unfortunately for junior cycle students, a lot of the courses were last week, but you can see that there is one more this week, which is junior cycle science, and that's with Connor, a brilliant science teacher, and he is our content creator for junior cycle science, and that is on Tuesday. So it's not too late to book into that. We still have some spaces available, and I can guarantee that that'll be a really good one that Connor's going to put on. Unfortunately, oh sorry, and I'll just show you here what Connor will look at. So this is these are the topics that Connor is going to look at throughout that session. So we have 4 areas. We have biological world, physical world, chemical world, and earth and space. And you can see how he's filling those into the session. So the first 2 hours there are biological world and physical world. There'll be a break then, lunch from 11:30 to 12:30, and then from 12:30 to 2:30 he will look at chemical world and earth and space. So if you go onto our site as well, obviously you can click into this yourself and you can have a good look at it before booking on. Okay, and if you do have any further questions, you can always pop us a message, an email, which is at office@examrevision.ie is our email, or you could even give us a phone call, and the number which you can ring is on the screen there as well. Okay. Now, there are other courses available still this week, lots of Leaving Cert courses. So maybe if you have a brother or a sister or someone you know who is looking to get some focused revision where they can obviously take part in the revision course and then watch it back afterwards. You can see that there's a lot on here. We have maths, both higher and ordinary level on this week. We have economics, and we have English as well. And if you want to find out what each of those courses will be going through, you can just, as I said, go onto our site and click on course info, and that will bring you to the page similar to what I just showed you there for junior cycle science. Okay, so I'll just show you a brief little look around at our site. So we have many subjects available, but with regards to junior cycle business, as you can see here, this is the homepage. So if you create an account with us, this is what you will see. And you can see we have it broken up into the different resources that we have. So we have our video tutorials, we have our quizzes, PowerPoints, we have an exam builder which allows you to look at previous exam questions that have came up in the different topics and challenge yourself by attempting those questions. We have a resource pack which is different challenges that you could use to assist in your revision, and there's a progress tracker which would be more so for your teacher if they were signed up. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief little look around. So we can see here we have this broken up into all the different topics which are in junior cycle business, and the numbers beside each of these, they're just learning outcomes. So you don't need to worry too much about those. They're more so for your teacher. If your teacher had an account, they would kind of understand those a little bit better. But we have these here just broken up into all of the different topics. And as I said, today what we're going to look at is economic indicators. So with regards to economic indicators, it's actually the last one on the list here. If you click into that one, you can see that we actually have everything that I'm going to go through today, but we have them broken down into smaller videos, so they're much easier for you to watch, because obviously it can be intimidating sometimes to have to sit down and watch maybe a 1 hour video clip or a 45-minute video clip. So these are all broken down into, they're in and around 10 minutes each. So for example, if you click on this one here, economic growth and inflation, and you can see that this is an 11-minute video which talks you through being able to calculate inflation and being able to explain the impacts of inflation also. So the videos are all concise and to the point, and it just stops you having to trawl through a 45-minute video to find the area that you actually want to learn. And of course, the good thing about exam revision videos and the good thing about watching video tutorials to assist in your learning is that you can stop, pause and rewind at any time, and that allows you to learn at your own pace. So if you maybe hear me say something and you don't quite understand it, you can pause it, you can rewind it, you can listen back to it then, and you can do that as many times as you want until that information is solidified for you. Okay, so two more things which I'll show you actually are our quizzes and our exam builder. So for our quizzes, these are great tools to assist you in your learning, and it could be a good idea maybe today, if you create an account after watching this video, you could go on and you could take our quiz on economic indicators. Okay, so if you scroll down here, you'll see here the yellow box, that's our quiz, and if you click into that, you'll see that there is a quiz here which has 10 questions on different aspects of economic indicators, and you can use that to assess your knowledge on everything that I'm going to cover today. And then finally, our exam builder function, and this is really, really good because this makes it really easy for you guys to go back and find exam questions on certain topics. So say if we were to look at a different topic, so say I was to go on to, say, we'll go enterprise, and here you can see now obviously junior cycle business is a little bit different because there's only been one junior cycle exam so far, because obviously the exams were cancelled in 2020, so we actually only have one paper to go off. But just on the 2019 paper, we can see here these are the questions that popped up on enterprise. Okay, so if you want to see the type of stuff that comes up, it's very easy for you to do that on our site, and then you can use those also to assist your revision maybe after watching the video. Okay, so that's kind of enough of going through the site, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin our session now. You'll just have to give me 2 seconds just to get this set up. Okay. So as you can see, this is our Saturday session. We have one every week. This week is obviously on junior cycle business, but sometimes they change. And we try to rotate the subjects every week. So what we're looking at today is economic indicators and Brexit. And our learning intentions for today, so basically by the end of this 1 hour session, these are the different things that we will have touched on. So we will have explained what economics is. We'll just have a brief little look at that. We will explain what economic indicators are. We will name and differentiate between the 6 different economic indicators. We'll distinguish between the effects of the economic indicators on households, businesses, and the economy. We will explain what Brexit is, and we will describe the different economic impacts of Brexit on Ireland, and we will apply the knowledge of the concepts covered to possible exam questions also. I'm actually just going to go back one slide, and I'm just going to show you here. So these are the 2 learning outcomes which you are trying to achieve based on these 2 topics that we're looking at today. So you'll see here that the first one is in relation to economic indicators, and it says you need to be able to explain the relevance of economic indicators such as inflation, employment rates, interest rates, economic growth, national income, and national debt for individuals and the economy. Okay, so everything that we're going to look at today is with regards to individuals and the economy, and that's why, because that's the learning outcome that you guys have to be able to achieve, and therefore that's what you could get asked about in an exam question. Um, and then the second one is to use your knowledge and information from a range of media sources to discuss current economic issues and present these in an informed view. So a big current economic issue which is ongoing and is very relevant to Ireland and the EU, and therefore is very relevant to us, is of course Brexit. So I'd be very shocked if Brexit didn't come up on um, summer assessments this year in nearly every school. So that's why I think it's important to go through it today. Okay, so we'll begin by looking at economics. And what is economics? So economics is the study of how people, businesses, and governments with limited resources make choices in order to satisfy their needs. Okay, so it's all about how everyone, because it's people, it's businesses, and it's governments, and how they use the limited resources that they have available to make choices in order to satisfy all of those people's needs. And economic indicators then are pieces of information that highlight the condition of the economy and allow economists to assess its overall health. So essentially, we use the economic indicators as information, as different aspects of information, which shows to us the condition that the economy is in currently. And what economists do is they use the information gathered from those economic indicators to assess the overall health of the economy. So an example of an economist would be David McWilliams. He's down there as an RTE economist, but I actually don't think he's with RTE anymore. What I would advise you guys to do is his podcast is very good. So his podcast is called the David McWilliams Podcast, and he will just talk about a different aspect of Ireland's economy every week. So I would advise you actually to listen to that every week, because there's lots of bits of knowledge there that you can acquire from listening to that podcast, which you can definitely bring into your answers and which you can use to develop your understanding of economics. So that's just a bit of a tip, or a bit of something extra that you can use to improve your knowledge on economics. So what someone like David McWilliams would do is they would use economic indicators to provide a useful insight into how the economy is going or is likely to go in the future. Okay, so they can use them not only to say if the economy is currently strong or currently weak, but also to say in the future we would expect the economy to be strong or weak or stay the same or whatever based off these reasons. And those reasons and those economic indicators are what we're going to look at today. And as it says here, depending on how the economy is performing, the government may stay with existing policies in place, or they may change certain policies. So they might bring in a new policy based on how the economy is going, or they are expecting it to go in the future. All right. So as I said, there are 6 economic indicators that we're going to look at today, and they all have an impact on households, businesses, and the economy. So the first one that we'll look at is inflation. There's employment levels. There's national debt, national income, economic growth, and finally, interest rates. Okay, so they're the 6 different economic indicators that we're going to look at throughout this session. So to introduce the first one, right, a good way to always think of this one is by thinking of the Freddo bar. So we can see here on the right hand side how the price of, I'll go back, how the price of a Freddo bar has changed over time. Okay, so these are the English Freddo bars. Okay, so that's why they have it in p instead of cent. But as we can see here, the Freddo bar used to cost 10p up to now, where in this image it costs 20p, and on this image on the left hand side we can see that it costs 30 cent. And I saw in a shop the other day that Freddos now cost 50 cent. Okay, so why does a Freddo bar cost 50 cent now when it used to be 10 cent, right? So why has that price changed? And one possible reason why that price has changed is due to inflation. And inflation is the increase in the general level of prices of goods and services from one year to the next. Okay, so it's the general level of how the price of different goods and different services change from one year to the next. And Ireland's current rate of inflation is around 0.6%, and that's an accurate figure because I just looked it up yesterday in preparation for this. So Ireland's current rate of inflation is around 0.6%. So that means that on average, goods are increasing in price by 0.6% this year in comparison to last year. So what are the different things that could cause inflation, that could cause the price of goods and services to increase? Well, we have 4 main causes of inflation here, okay? We have cost push inflation, and this is when the cost price of goods increases as a result of the cost of producing the goods increases. And an example of that is how the increased cost of wages, an example is like the increased cost of wages or the increased cost of materials, okay? So for example, say if minimum wage increases, okay, so if I own a company and I have 10 employees and they work on minimum wage, and say for example minimum wage is €9.50 an hour, and then the government decides that they're going to increase minimum wage to €10.50 an hour, okay, so that means that by law I now have to increase the wages of my employees, so my costs have now increased. So as a result of my costs increasing for my business, in order for me to make sure that I make a profit, I might have to increase the cost of the item or the service it is that I provide. Okay, so that's cost push inflation. Or similarly, say for example, if I owned a company and my company was that I created, we'll say, like jumpers or runners or something like that, and I was importing my materials from, we'll say, keeping in line with what we're looking at today. Say if I was importing my materials to make those runners and to make those jumpers from the UK, and then all of a sudden the UK leaves the EU, and as a result of Brexit, the costs of those materials increase. Well, now again, in order for me to make a profit, I need to increase the price of the goods that I'm producing. So there are 2 examples of cost push inflation. The next one is imported inflation, and this is when the cost price of finished imported goods increases as a result of the cost of importing them being increased. So say for example, if I was importing my materials from say the US, and then when Donald Trump was the president of the US, there was an increased tariff for goods being shipped in from the US, well then that's going to increase then the price of me importing those goods. So in order again for me to make a profit, I need to increase my price. Okay, so that's an example of imported inflation. The next one is demand pull inflation. So this is when the cost price of goods increases due to increased demand for that product or service. So if the demand is greater than the supply, the price will rise. So that's kind of touching on the topic of supply and demand. But essentially, if I own a product and the demand increases, so lots and lots of people all of a sudden want to purchase that product for whatever reason, and there's a sharp increase in the demand for my product, what I can do is I can increase my price, because I know that the demand is so high that if I increase my price, people are going to pay it anyway, and so I'm going to make more profit, and it's a win-win situation for my company. So that's an example of demand pull inflation. And then finally, inflated taxes. So this is an increase in indirect taxes such as VAT or excise duties, automatically increasing the price of the product. Okay, so for example, say if we go with Cadbury's, and say there was an increase in VAT, well then Cadbury's have to increase their price straight away. Okay, because indirectly their price is just increased due to VAT increasing. Okay, so there are different reasons why inflation could take place. And when we're looking at calculating inflation, this is the formula that we use. Okay, so first of all, the official rate of inflation is measured by the Consumer Price Index, and sometimes you might see that as CPI for short. And that could be a short question. Okay, so this is a short question that could potentially pop up. So how is the rate of inflation measured? Okay, or what is the name of the group or the organization that measures inflation? And the answer there is the Consumer Price Index. Okay, and in Ireland, the Central Statistics Office collects over 53,000 prices every month and compares them to the previous month to find the Consumer Price Index. Okay, so that's how it's found in Ireland. The CSO conducts studies every month and compare them to the previous month to find that rate of inflation. But if we're looking at the rate of inflation from one year to the next, this is the formula that we use. So you get the difference in the cost of living between year one and year two. Okay, so you get your cost of living for year one, and you minus it from the cost of living in year two, and then you divide it by the cost of living in year one, and you multiply it by 100. Okay, so that's the formula that you will use for calculating inflation. So this is our example here. Using that formula, so we have the cost of living for a household in 2016 was €9,500, and the cost of living in 2017 was €9,800, and you're asked to calculate the rate of inflation. So in 2017, the cost of living was 9,800, as we said. In 2016, it was 9,500. So year one was 2017, because that's the most recent year, and year two is 2016, because it's the year furthest away. So we do 9,800 minus 9,500. That gives us a difference of €300. So we put €300 and we divide it by the cost of our living from year one, which is €9,500, and we multiply it by 100, and that gives us 3.15%. Okay, so that means that the rate of inflation there in this one was 3.15%. And these are the different impacts that that inflation could have on a household, a business, or the economy. So from a household's perspective, inflation reduces purchasing power of money. So purchasing power of money means how much you can purchase with the amount of money that you have. And therefore consumers cannot buy as many goods and services as previously, and this will lower the standard of living for households. Okay, because in the previous year they were earning the same amount of money, but with that same amount of money they were able to purchase more things than they were this year. Okay, if inflation is high, so that means that their standard of living has lowered because they can't live as well as they did in the year previous. For a business then, Workers may demand higher wages as a result, because if they can't buy as much things as they're used to and everything is more expensive, the workers might want more higher wages, and they might come to the business owner and ask for those higher wages. And if the business grants that wage increase, well, then this will increase business costs, and therefore it will either lower the prices or higher the prices, and sometimes both. Okay, so for a business, then, if they want to be able to pay the workers these higher wages, what they might do is they could higher the prices of their items, obviously to increase their profit, or they might even lower the prices to try to get in more sales. So whichever one they want. But either way, this could discourage business from further expansion. So if the business had any plans to expand, they might have to put those on hold because, sorry, they might have to put those on hold because their costs have increased and they can't afford to do it anymore. So finally, if we look at the economy, this means that Irish-made goods and services will be more expensive. So this will make it more difficult to sell them abroad, and this could result in job losses and rising unemployment. So if the cost of goods in Ireland increases like quickly, well then this makes it more difficult to sell these products abroad, because abroad in other countries those products won't cost as much as they do in Ireland, because the rate of inflation in the other countries could be lower. So therefore your product which you're selling abroad isn't competitive anymore, and you might not make as much sales as you used to, and this could lead to job losses, and this could lead to unemployment figures increasing in the country. And therefore, if that happens, the government then may have to increase its spending on social welfare payments and also on goods due to these rising costs. Okay, because if more people are unemployed, more people are going to claim social welfare, and that's going to increase the costs of social welfare for the Irish government, which is obviously a negative because for them, because that means that now they have less money to spend on things like improving schools and hospitals and roads and transport and all those important things, because they have to spend their money on social welfare. So the next economic indicator that we'll look at is employment, and it's really important, and you might have even seen from back here the importance of employment. Okay, so it's really important when we're looking at employment to know that the aim of all governments is to have as many people in employment as possible. Okay, every government in the world is always going to want to have as many people employed as possible. And the reason for that is because if you have as many people employed as possible, this increases government revenue through taxes. Okay, because everyone pays taxes on the wages that they receive, and those taxes go to the government. Okay, so if the government has like everyone employed, everyone who's available to working in their country, that means that they're generating as much revenue through taxes as they possibly can. And again, then that gives them more money which they can spend on important things, like I said, such as maybe improving hospitals or schools or whatever. And on top of that, it's also going to reduce their expenditure, right? So it's going to reduce their costs, because if more people are employed, that means that they have less social welfare payments that they need to pay out. Okay, so that's why every government is always going to want to have as many people employed as possible. So one term which you should be familiar with is this here idea of full employment. So full employment is when almost all members of the labour force are employed. And in Ireland, the Irish government regards an unemployment rate of around 4% as full employment. Okay, so the Irish government thinks that if they have unemployment at around 4%, they're happy that that's full employment. Okay, because I suppose you're always going to have some people who, even if they're fit and available for work, that they just won't want to for whatever reason. Okay, so it's kind of near on impossible to have this figure, this unemployment figure at 0%. Okay, so the Irish government basically they view full employment as being 4%. Okay. So to calculate unemployment levels, how we do that is we get the number of unemployed people, and we divide it by the total number of people in the labour force, and we multiply it by 100. Okay, so if the figure for unemployment is really high, okay, so we said here, back here, that um, the Irish government views like 4%, an unemployment rate of 4% as full employment, okay? So say if this figure was 25% or 30%, okay? So say this figure, the unemployment figure was really high. What impacts would that have on households, businesses, and the economy? Well, in general, from a household's perspective, there would be a decrease in consumer demand for goods and services as people have less income. So if people don't have jobs, that means obviously they have less income and they have less money to spend. So that means that households will be decreasing their demand for different goods and services. This will lead to a decreased standard of living for households because they'll have less money that they can spend on things such as like buying new clothes, or going out for a dinner, or going to the cinema or something like that. Um, so their standard of living will decrease. And as a result of that standard of living decreasing, well, then people could get fed up and they could decide, right, well, like I can't get a job here, so I might move to a new country to get a job, okay? So this may force people to emigrate to find employment. So from a household's perspective, we have a decreased standard of living, and this could cause people to emigrate. With regards to businesses, then, there could be a reduction in sales and profits as consumers have less disposable income. So if in general there are less people out there that have jobs and have money to spend, well then all businesses are going to be affected. They're all going to get like an overall reduction in sales and therefore profits as well. So as a result, this decrease in demand could make it difficult for businesses to find investors, okay? Because if an investor is looking at a business, they want to find a business that's profitable and a business that's making lots of sales. So if your business isn't making lots of sales, it could make it difficult for you as a business to find investors, maybe to expand into something new, maybe to develop a new product, or just to scale up and get bigger. So that could be a really big negative for businesses, okay? And then with regards to the economy, so if unemployment is high, there will be a reduction in economic activity due to less people having disposable income. So economic activity is just people spending money on goods and services. And if people do emigrate, okay, if as a result of this there's emigration, we could have emigration of highly skilled and qualified workers, and this could make Ireland a less attractive location for foreign direct investment. So for example, in Ireland at the minute, like we have lots of big companies such as like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn that have like their European bases in Dublin. And the reason why they have them there is because we have lots of really highly skilled and qualified workers who are able to do the jobs that they need done. So if those people are emigrating and they're leaving Ireland because they can't find work here, well then those big companies will be less likely to set up here in the first place. And this could lead to what's known as a brain drain. So a brain drain is when highly skilled and qualified workers leave a country to go to a new country in search of work. And obviously that's a negative thing because you don't want to lose those skilled employees from your workforce. So if we were in a classroom situation now, okay, what I would do is I would get my students to fill in this grid here, okay? So I would get them to flip their thinking, and I would get them to fill in a template to look at the effects of high employment, okay? So we now know the effects of high unemployment, but say if there was lots of people who were employed, and say the unemployment figure was like 3% or 4% as the Irish government wants, what are the different effects that this could have on households, businesses, and the economy? Okay, and this template is actually in our resource pack, and as you can see here, it's on page 26. But what I have done is I have I've taken this page and I've put it into a PDF, and the page with all these templates on it will be emailed to you if you fill in the Google form that I mentioned at the very start of the video, okay? So if you want to use this to assist in your revision, you just need to fill in the Google form and we'll get this sent out to you, okay? So if you want to watch back this video maybe during the week as a bit of revision or whatever, and you want to use the template to help you, that's fine. You just need to fill in the Google form that's in the chat of our YouTube live here, okay? And we'll email it out to you, okay? So just looking at high employment though, if our employment figures were high, what this could have on households is an increase in consumer demand for goods and services as people have more income. This could then lead to an increased standard of living. It could then drive up prices as increased demand can increase price, okay? From a business perspective then, there'll be an increase in sales and profits as the consumers have more disposable income, and this increased demand will make it more easier for businesses to find investors to fund that expansion that they might want to do. This allows businesses then to expand and come up with new products, as we said. So from the economy side of things then, if employment is high, this means that there will be an increase in economic activity due to less people having disposable income, okay? So sorry, that should say more people having disposable income. That's just a little mistake there. So sorry about that. So that should say there'll be an increase in economic activity due to more people having disposable income, okay? And this will then create more jobs and it will keep our highly skilled workers in the country, and therefore this could lead to more multinational companies setting up here and creating even more jobs as a spin-off effect, okay? So what you see here is lots of people are employed, lots of people are really highly educated and really highly skilled, and then other big companies might look at that and say, okay, look, Ireland's workforce there is really highly skilled. There's lots of big companies there. Why are they setting up there? And should we do the same? So you could get that spin-off effect of even more jobs and even more multinational companies setting up there. Okay, so we're finished with that economic indicator now, and we are moving on to our next one. So just as an introduction here into that, we can see we have a little conversation here between two people. The first person is saying that they're a little bit stuck for money and is looking for a lend of €50. And the second person is saying that's no problem as long as you pay me back with an interest rate of 10%. So what we're going to look at here is, what does interest rate mean in the context of this conversation? So what an interest rate is the cost of borrowing money or the reward for money saved. And as you can see, there's kind of two elements to that. So we have an example for each of those. Example one is John gets a loan from the bank of €1,000 to help pay for a new car. This loan is given to him with an interest rate of 10%. Since 10% of €1,000 is €100, John will then have to pay back €1,100 to the bank, okay? In our second example then, in the following year, John opens a savings account and deposits €2,000 into the account, and that account has an interest rate of 4%. And since 4% of €2,000 is €80, if John does not take out any money for the year, he will then have €2,080 in his account at the end of the year, okay? So we can see here the two different types of interest rates that exist. So if interest rates are low, okay, so if that figure, these figures here, such as the 10% or the 4%, if that figure is low, this means that loans are going to be cheaper, okay? So if you want to go and get that loan, that means that it's going to be cheaper for you, because in the long run, if the interest rate is low, that means you're going to have to pay back less money. So if the interest rates are low, that's going to encourage more households to take out loans to pay for things like cars or maybe mortgages or maybe like home improvements, that kind of thing. And it also means that those who already have existing loans will have an increased amount of disposable income as their repayment costs will be reduced. Okay, so if you had a loan, well then you'll have to pay back less than you think, and therefore you'll have more disposable income. This increased borrowing then will increase the amount of household debt. Okay, so even though more people will take out like more money to pay for things, which is good for the economy, from a household perspective, it means that more households will have more debt, which is obviously a negative. So looking at businesses then, If interest rates are low, businesses will be able to fund expansion and new product development. They'll be able to get out loans from the bank also for cheaper, and that could encourage them to do it. Therefore, if you can fund expansion and new product development, that can lead to increased employment and profitability, because you're going to need to take on employees to work on those new projects. And if the project is successful, that means that you could increase your profit, so businesses could benefit also. It also means that if a business has an existing loan, that the repayment will be lower, and this means that the business will have lower business costs, and this could make businesses more competitive, leading to more sales and profits. Okay, so that's obviously overall positive for the business. Then looking at the economy, if we have increased borrowing and spending, this could lead to an increase in VAT revenue for the government. So if more people are taking out more loans and spending more money, that means that there's more value-added tax going back into the government's revenue, and that means then that they have more money to spend. So increased spending will help to create jobs, meaning the government will save money on social welfare payments, and also the cost of paying the national debt will be reduced, and this will free up finance for things like healthcare, education, etc. Okay, so if the government is generating more money in taxes, that means that they have more money which they can use to spend on the national debt, but it also means that the cost of repaying the national debt will be reduced also, because obviously there's going to be an interest rate that the government is paying back on that loan. So if the interest rate reduces, that means that they have to pay back less money also, and that frees up more money then for them to spend on things like healthcare, education, and that kind of thing. So again, we're going to then you could use this to fill in the template, okay, for our next one, which is high interest rates. So if interest rates are high, this means that the loans are going to be more expensive, and more expensive loans will result in less borrowing and less spending, okay? Because if it's going to cost you more to take out that loan, that would discourage you to take out that loan in the first place. So that means that there'll be less spending and less borrowing happening by people in households. It also means that those who have existing loans will have to pay back more money, which means that they'll have less disposable income than they thought. However, if there's a decrease in borrowing, this should lead to an increase in saving, and the high interest rates will allow more people to save more money. So in the previous one, we said that if there's low interest rates, that people could run up big debts, but if there's high interest rates, that's going to discourage people from borrowing. So the chances are they might save more money, which is obviously can be a benefit. For businesses then, organizations will not be able to fund expansion or new product development because they might not be able to afford to pay back a loan with a high interest rate. This will lead to a decrease in employment and profitability because those new projects won't happen, so less people will be employed, and the business won't make the profits that they might have hoped if the expansion happened. The repayments on existing loans will also be higher, which means that businesses will have higher business costs, and this could make businesses less competitive and lead to less sales and less profits. From the economy's end then, decreased borrowing and increased saving will lead to a decrease in VAT revenue for the government, and decreased spending will lead to less jobs being created and higher employment levels and increased social welfare payments for the government also. And it means that the cost of paying the national debt for them will be increased because they'll have less finance available then. And sorry, as a result then, they'll have less finance to spend on things like education and healthcare. So they might actually have to have cuts then into those departments as a result. Okay, so we've mentioned national debt in that last one. So what national debt is the total amount of money that a country's government has borrowed. And if you click onto this website here, it will show you what Ireland's national debt is currently. And yesterday when I looked at it, Ireland's national debt was around 206.8 billion. So Ireland's national debt has risen over the last few years from 65 billion euro in 2006 to where it stands today at around, as I said, 225.8 billion. Sorry, that's the more accurate figure that I got from yesterday. that was from around this time last year. And the two main reasons why Ireland's national debt is increasing is that it's mainly happened as a result of the government's need to fund large budget deficits and also provide financial support to the banks. So that's in light of the most recent recession, which happened as a result in 2007, 2008. So they're still paying back some debt from that when they had to pay back the banks. And also, the impact of COVID-19 recently would have also increased this debt. So they're kind of the two reasons why our debt is so high currently. It's important then, this is something as well which could come up in a short question, that the state body that manages the national debt is the National Treasury Management Agency. Okay, so you could definitely get asked that in a short question also. What is the name of the state body that manages Ireland's national debt? So the impact of national debt on households, businesses and the economy then, with regards to the households, if the national debt is high, taxes may have to increase to help fund the repayment on the government loans. So that means then government spending may have to be reduced and the level of public services being provided could be impacted. Okay, so from a household's perspective, you know, the bus that you get into work, maybe that might not operate as frequently as you're used to, or maybe like our healthcare system might not be as good. So those things could impact people within households. For businesses then, increased taxes will decrease the amount of disposable income that consumers have. This could mean that consumers will spend less on goods and services, and this could lead to job losses and also reduce business investment, because if profits aren't high, you might not be able to pay the wages of as many workers, and you might need to let a few go. From the economy then, from that point of view, the government may have to borrow money in order to pay for essential public services such as teachers, Gardaí and nurses. So this could lead to a reduction in these services. So maybe we might not have as much Gardaí as we should, and that might mean that that service might not run as well as it should do, and that could even maybe lead to like an increase in crime as a result. And then money spent on debt will not be available for other public needs such as transport and infrastructure. If the government is just spending lots of its money on servicing the debt, well then they might not have as much to spend on like developing our infrastructure and transport links and that kind of thing. Okay, so we know what national debt is. So what's national income, which is kind of the opposite? So national income is the total value of all new goods and services produced within a country in a year. And national income is usually expressed as either GDP, which is gross domestic product, or GNP, which is gross national product. So gross domestic product is a measurement which measures the total value of the goods and services produced within a country in 1 year. It's important to note that this includes goods and services produced by local and foreign owned businesses. Okay, so if we compare that to gross national product, this is the total value of the goods and services produced by a country either in that country or overseas in 1 year. Okay, so the example there for how GNP is different to GDP is if we take an Irish company such as Fulfill. So Fulfill is the company that makes the protein bars. You'd see them in like petrol stations and news agents all around the country. And they also operate in the UK, okay? So the value of Fulfill bars which are sold in the UK also count as a measurement of gross national product, whereas they don't count for GDP, okay? So GDP just measures the value of the goods and services that are produced within that country, whereas GNP looks at like Irish goods and services produced by a country and which are sold either in that country or also overseas. So that's why Fulfill would count as GNP rather than GDP. Okay, and for that reason, GDP by some people is seen as like the best indicator of economic health. And the reason for that is because it does not include that income from overseas investment. So therefore, it shows the value of goods and services that are produced in that country only. So it's just maybe a little bit more accurate. It's a little bit more of an accurate reflection into the economic health and the money which is actually in that country, rather than income which is gotten by say an Irish business abroad, and therefore not as much of that money is finding its way back into the Irish economy. So if we look at national income and the effect that having a high national income could have on households, businesses and the economy then. So for a household, more goods and services being produced will lead to more jobs for the public, and this could mean that individuals should have more income and a higher standard of living. For businesses then, businesses will be producing more goods and services. This could lead to increased profits, which will allow them to create new products and expand. Okay, so if there is more money going into the Irish economy, that means that more money is being spent in the Irish economy, and that means that businesses will have to produce more goods and services to match that need. So this could lead to increased profits for them, which allows them to create new products and expand. Within the economy then, the government, again, if more people are spending more money, they're going to have more taxes. So they should have more revenue to invest in the economy, which could lead to a greater spending on things like healthcare, education and infrastructure. And if more jobs are created, the government will save finance on social welfare payments also. Okay, so in looking at low national income, so if national income is low, then this is the impacts that it could have. Okay, so it's just the opposite. It means that less goods and services being produced will lead to less jobs for the public. This could mean that individuals should have less income and a lower standard of living. This means that people could be forced to emigrate, as we've said previously, due to lack of work, and this is the brain drain, which we've already explained previously as well. Businesses will then be producing less goods and services, which leads to a decrease in profits for them and could lead to unemployment of staff. Within the economy, the government would have less revenue to invest in the economy, which could lead to a reduced spending on things like healthcare, education and infrastructure. And therefore, if the unemployment rates are high, this could mean the government is going to have to increase social welfare payments. So it's just the complete polar opposite to if there was a high national income. Okay, so we're at a point now where we've looked at all 6 of our economic indicators. Okay, so I just want to take a quick look at a past exam question which came up in the 2019 paper in relation to economic indicators. So this is the type of question which you could get asked maybe in a summer assessment this year. Something like this, okay? And you'll see how it also relates to the learning outcome that we looked at the start of this video also. So I'm just going to get that up in the PDF form. Okay, so the question says that, so it's a continuation of a previous question, and it says that given that Mary's husband John is unemployed, she is interested in finding out how the economy is doing. On the graph below, the economic indicators for unemployment and economic growth are shown for Ireland for 2017 and 2018. So we can see here that the blue bar is 2017 and the orange bar is 2018. And in 2017, unemployment was 6.7%, and in 2018 unemployment was 5.6%. So straight away we can see there that unemployment has reduced in 2018. So that's obviously a good thing. For economic growth then, we can see that in 2017 economic growth was 7.6%, and in 2018 it was 5.6%. Okay, so it's actually reduced, which is a negative thing. And all you have to do here is you just need to tick the box as to whether you think this is a good trend or a bad trend. So we know that unemployment reducing from one year to the next is a good trend, and we know that economic growth reducing from one year to the next is a bad trend. Okay, so straight away you tick those 2 boxes and you have your marks. And then the continuation of that question then is explain the impact of the above trend in unemployment on individuals like John and the economy. Okay, so it asks you for an impact on unemployment on individuals and on the economy. So we've covered that in today's session. Okay, so if you are answering this question, you could say that an impact on unemployment on individuals like John is that they might have less disposable income to spend. And an impact on the economy could be that if unemployment figures are high, that the government is going to have to spend more money on social welfare payments, which means they might not then be able to spend that money on important things such as education and healthcare. Okay, so that's just an example of the type of question that you could get on a summer assessment on economic indicators. So what we're going to do then is we are going to move on now and we're going to have a little look at Brexit. Okay, so again, if we're in a classroom situation, I'd begin this topic just by kind of using this image and what's happening in this cartoon. We can see that the UK is kind of leaving a plane with lots of European people on it. Okay, so and again, remember at the start, we said that what you need to be able to investigate is a current economic issue, and a big current economic issue is Brexit. So what Brexit is the withdrawal of the UK from the European Union, and in a referendum on the 23rd of June 2016, 51.9% of the participating electorate voted to leave the EU, okay? But the thing is, we need to look at the impact that this is going to have on Ireland. So obviously, Ireland is an island which is beside the island of the UK, and we have lots of trade agreements which exist with the UK. And as a result of the UK leaving the EU, that put a big strain on those, and it's had an impact already. So the different impacts that Brexit has had on Ireland is that the UK and Ireland traditionally trade over €1 billion worth of goods and services each week. Okay, so prior to Brexit taking place, between the UK and Ireland, over €1 billion worth of goods was exchanged between the UK and Ireland every single week. Okay, so that's obviously a lot of money which is exchanging there between businesses and for goods and services. Also, the UK is the biggest market for exports from Ireland. Approximately 43% of indigenous exports go to the UK. So out of all of our exports that leave Ireland, nearly half of those go to just the UK. Okay, so the UK is obviously just one country like in the world out of all the other countries that exist, and half of everything that leaves Ireland goes to that one state or that one country, which is obviously massive. So that's why it's really important for Ireland that we got like a good Brexit, that we didn't get like a hard Brexit, which was going to impact on businesses negatively and on businesses' ability to be able to trade in the UK easily. Also, UK citizens are Ireland's main tourists, with nearly 3 million tourists visiting Ireland from the UK each year. Okay, so um, if, for example, the UK tourists weren't able to get into the EU easily as a result of the agreement which could have taken place between the UK government and the European Union, that could have been detrimental to Ireland's tourist industry, because we would have lost all of the money which all of those tourists pay every year when they come to visit Ireland. Okay, so again, that's another reason why it was important that we didn't have like a hard border there. Two things then which we know which have happened as a result of Brexit though is that Ireland has lost 15% of its EU fishing quota. Okay, so 15% of waters which Irish trawlers were allowed to fish in is now gone, and also our exports to Britain have fallen by 14%. Okay, so this figure here has fallen by 14% since Brexit has taken place. So what we can see here is that the UK leaving the EU makes it significantly more difficult for all of these movements to take place, and that's obviously a negative thing for Ireland and for Irish businesses. So I know I've only touched on that briefly, but I kind of said at the start that it would just be a brief little look at what Brexit is. And here's an exam question then, which has came up previously on Brexit. And I would imagine that it's this kind of thing, this kind of question, which you could get on our summer assessment, or if you're watching this video back, in a future junior cycle exam. So it says here the Pure Confectionery Company is planning to export to the UK market, but is concerned about the effects of Brexit. Outline 2 difficulties that the company might face in selling to the UK market after the UK leaves the European Union. Okay, so what you're talking about there is you could talk about import costs, you could talk about tariffs, you could talk about employees and employment agreements and that kind of thing. Okay, so there are different options which you have, which you could put into into there as your answer. Okay, so we have been on the go now for an hour, and we are pretty much ready to finish up there now. I'm just gonna quickly just check the Instagram chat just to see if any of you left any questions, and I'll get back to them then. Okay, so there aren't any questions there, so that's okay. So what I would say is, just to finish up, we mentioned the ExamRevision courses, and I'll just show you where they are on our site. And as I said, there is still a science one which is on this week. So our science ExamRevision course is on Tuesday, and there is still time to book into that, as I said. And then we also have our Leaving Cert courses as well, which you can pass on to any brothers or sisters or friends or whatever. But other than that, then the last thing that I'll just show you is how to set up your free trial, and how to have a quick look around before maybe deciding that you want to purchase an account. Okay, so if you want to set up a free trial and have a quick look around, it's very easy. You just need to click here, sign up for free. You're going to be a student, so you're going to click that, count me in. You're going to put in your email address, you're going to follow the steps, and then eventually you will get your free account then. Okay, and within that then there is a free topic available for each of our subjects, for both Leaving Certificate and for junior cycle. So it could be a good idea to have a look around there if you're not familiar with our website, and then if you like what you see, you can purchase either a standard or a premium account. And if you do get any questions, you can always drop us a message on Twitter or Instagram, or via our email. All our social media details are down here. Okay, so you can click on any of them, and that'll bring you to our social medias where you can contact us. Okay, but that is pretty much it for this session. Thanks for joining along, and I hope to engage with a lot of you again